Very good morning to you once again. If you're just joining us, back to one of our leading stories now. The High Court in Pretoria expected to hear the EFF's bid to unseal President Cyril Ramaphosa's CR17 ANC campaign. This is now the effort to try and have the bank statements unsealed. Now, the Red Berets believe it will provide much needed transparency. Joining us now is legal expert Professor Pierre de Vos, who talks to us all the way from Cape Town. Prof, thank you very much for your time. I noticed in the heads of argument of the EFF, they use the soon-to-be operationalized Political Party Funding Act as part of why they saying that there needs to be transparency. How significant a role, in your view, do you think the operationalization, I've got that word right, of the Political Party Funding Act will play in this particular court case?
Yeah, it will not play legally any role because the Political Party Funding Act is binding on political parties. At the moment, it is not binding on politicians running political campaigns to get elected within a party. So there's no legal obligation at the moment, whether it's Cyril Ramaphosa, Dlamini Zuma, Mr. Zulu, they don't have to reveal who funded their ANC campaigns. There is nothing like that. I think there should be, but the law at that time does not provide for it, which is a problem, of course, because we don't know who fund the politicians and their campaigns. We cannot subject them to scrutiny to see if they've been bought by those people who fund them. This case is more about open justice, about what to do with documents that are before the court and how those documents, whether those documents should always be available and open to the public.
It's interesting that you say this, Prof, about the Political Party Funding Act, because in their court documents, this is now the EFF's argument, you will tell me if they're trying to be sneaky about this. It does say, or they do make the point, that the Political Party Funding Act makes it explicitly clear that donations made to political parties and its members ought to be revealed.
Okay, so the problem, so that's an interesting legal argument. So the EFF was actually opposing that piece of legislation because of that very specific provision. The question that the court will have to ask is whether this was a donation to a person. Ramaphosa campaign has always said, and the High Court in the matter of public protection seemed to have agreed that this was not a donation to him personally, to a party member. It was to his campaign. You know, they had that whole CR17, they set up a separate thing. Whether that is correct, I don't know what the court will find. But that is a contentious question on which we at the moment have no legal clarity.
Yeah. Prof, then let's talk about the Amapungane. They are a friend of the court, and they are arguing exactly what your opening line was about, that this is a case about openness. Nonetheless, though, they are an interesting party because just recently, one of their journalists, Sam Sol, he won a court case on the issue that his phone was bugged, illegally so, by the spies, the people who work for government. Isn't that an interesting bit from them to say, whilst on the one hand, one of their journalists' privacy was violated, on the other, they're going to court to argue that the president, who argues that this is an issue of privacy, the identifying of people who donated to my campaign, may infringe on the rights of those who donated to his campaign.
Yeah, I'm not sure that argument flies. In both cases, Amapungane is actually in favor of openness and transparency. If the state is going to use its power, in the one case, the intelligence services, to bug you, you need to know about this at some point. There needs to be some transparency. It cannot be secret. In the other case, of the bank statements. Once again, there needs to be transparency for accountability's sake. I think the question about the individual journalist, his complaint was that he was actually being spied on, and nobody knew about it. There was no transparency because the spies work in the dark, and sometimes they break the law, and there needs to be protection for it. So I think the arguments are similar.
They are similar. They are indeed similar, Prof, because the Deputy President then, who is now President, may also possibly argue the same, to say my emails, for example, were exposed illegally so through spy means by government agencies, including this issue of the documents, although the FIC does also seem to be worried. This is now the Financial Intelligence Center, which says documents that were given to the public protector, we are seeking to have the court maintain the lid on those documents.
Yes. So this is also interesting in the sense that the president is making a technical legal argument, and he's saying, and the Financial Intelligence Center Act, the Act says if you got the documents from us, it stays secret unless the court orders otherwise, or there's some other exception. So the question here is the court is being asked to make the order. The difficulty for the president is that he is the president of the country. He's a public representative. The Constitution talks about accountability and transparency, so his position is slightly different from the journalist or anybody else. And there's also a political problem in the sense that if you're a politician, if you use the law to try and hide information about your political campaign, it's going to create the perception that you have something to hide and maybe that you have done something wrong. So I think both from a legal perspective, I think it is important that the court should be open and that legal documents should be open unless the Financial Intelligence Center can prove that it's really going to make their job impossible if the documents are made public. And at the same time, politically, I don't think it is a very wise thing to want to have documents kept secret, because secrecy always looks like you have something to hide, and that's politically not a good look.
Yeah, Prof, final question to you. So while the president is the subject of I'm not sure how to phrase this one, but the president basically, he cannot be seen to want to hide anything from the public if he is to be seen to be open and transparent, particularly in an era where the country is plagued by corruption. So that's the one issue aside. Those that donated to his campaign, do they have a legal recourse or a legal right to say, we might have our rights violated here, and what rights may they want to raise before the court?
Yes, so the same thing was argued with the Political Party Funding Act, in which both some of the political parties and the funders said, we don't want this act because we are going to be scared for being exposed or being vilified if people know we donated to party X or party Y. I don't think that is a particularly good argument, in the sense that, yes, one has a right to privacy, but that can be trumped by other interests, including the right to know, the right to have information, to receive information, freedom of expression, and also accountability. Whether you're a private party or a public party, if you have a lot of power through your money, then there must be accountability mechanisms. And when it comes to funding of politicians and political parties, transparency is the best mechanism for accountability. So I think there's a balance, but the balance should not be struck in their interest, because it will protect them, especially in the case of those donors who are actually donating with a corrupt intent, and that cannot be allowed, I would argue. We don't know what the law says about this yet, because we haven't had it before the courts, but that's my personal view.
Yeah. Professor Pierre de Vos, thank you very much for always simplifying what the legalese that are sometimes very steeped in the legal language always are difficult for us to interpret. So thank you very much for that. Very interesting arguments indeed that are going to happen there. And I must just apologize for the sound to Professor Pierre de Vos. That sound not really good, a bit patchy, but at least we soldiered on.